Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Team Kimchi versus Los Polos Hermanos, a matchup that could be the grand finals even of this 3v3 $20,000 AoE4 Pro League. Leenock, Kiwian+Murlocking from Korea versus VortiX+LucifroN+TheMista. We're jumping into game number 1 on Dry Arabia. As you see the civilizations, Lucifron does have French, Mista has the Mongols, and Vortex has the Rus. Whereas on the other side, Kiwian is going to be playing with the French, Leenock with the Abbasid dynasty, and Murlocking with the English. To the northern side of the map, in RGB colors, will be Team Kimchi. We will have in the pocket. Actually, that's the... Wait a minute. Colors are flipped up. Ooh. We're gonna have to flip the colors over here. So, hold on for a brief moment. While we do that, we did not expect that one to be an issue. But here we go. So, colors are flipped. In RGB colors, we will have Los Polos Hermanos. You should be able to see the colors change very soon. And on the other side, we will have Mista, Vortex, and Lucifron, some of the best individual players of Age of Empires 4 out there. Colors still freaking out a tiny bit, so we'll have to manually edit those. But hang on for a brief moment. Those colors on top right are not right. But anyways, in the pocket, we will have Lucifron playing as the blue French. On the left side, we will have Vortex playing as the Rus in red, and on the right side, we'll have the Mista playing as the Mongols in green. Three of the best civilizations for team games might be the three best civilizations overall, so they are going in guns blazing into this game with three of their best civs. Whereas on the other side, it looks like Kiwian's team is doing a bit more of a saving work on the civilizations. They do want to save some of their more powerful civs for game number 2. French flank for Kiwian in purple, Abbasid pocket for Leenock in yellow, and it is going to be Murlocking as the English in teal. Alright, so colors should be fixed now. We do have a con aggroing some of the wolves, which actually hurts Vortex's team right now because they obviously want the Rus player to take down as many huntables as they can. Los Polos Hermanos currently with 210 bounty in the hands of Vortex, already getting close to that level 2, and there is still a lot of huntables to be taken down here and probably all across the map in the middle as well. So RGB colors versus what is actually CMYK colors, so we're using two different color palettes for the players. This isn't intentional, this is just how things ended up being. We already have that hunting cabin up for Vortex. On the right side, we will have an Ovu right next to the base of Mista. This means that when he places that pasture right next to the TC, it's also going to have a faster villager or a faster sheep production rate, so that's going to help a tiny bit. Already has a Gur out on the gold mine. Nice and compact base here for Mista. He's got a pasture working, his gold mine is close, his wood line is close to his town center, so nothing to be ashamed of for his start. 6 on the Golden Gate for Vortex. He's already at 220 bounty, but he hasn't cracked that level 3 just yet. Not even level 2, so he has to amp up his killing of huntables because so far he wasn't super active doing that. Looking at Kiwian, he's coming in with the School of Cavalry. Somewhat surprisingly, we have his School of Cavalry to the left of his town center and not close to his gold mine. Usually you place that School of Cavalry close to your gold, so you have an easier time reinforcing your gold mine. For whatever reason, he decided to place it on the far left of his base, where there isn't really much to protect. It's going to give him some vision, but it's going to make it more difficult to protect this wood line or this gold mine out here for him. Council Hall coming in for Murlocking right in front of his base. And on the other side, for the Mista, he's coming in with Deer Stones, no aggression put up in Dark Age, not a single scout, not a single spearman. So I would expect him to play just standard archers in Feudal Age at this point. If he wanted to go for horsemen, he could be making his stable already by now, so it's likely going to be an archer play. And we do have Lucifron coming in with the School of Cavalry. On the left side, Vortex going for the standard fast castle play of the Rus. Not a single production building. He's still killing huntables, and now he's up to 400 bounty. And of course, he already has the Golden Gate going for him. Looking at his resource bank, it's not spectacular yet, but of course, Professional Scouts is just now coming in. Meanwhile, looking at Kiwian, he's opening with Knights. Despite being French, he's not going to pick up the Huntables with Professional Scouts. There are two options in the French. You can go for the Hunt and go Professional Scouts with your first couple of units trained on the School of Cavalry, or you can go straight Knights, which is the more aggressive approach at this point. We do have some Spearmen coming in here from Leenock. Not a ton, but it's going to be helpful to deal with the early Knights of Lucifron, especially with the sneaky tower here. And this is the time. This is the time where we have to highlight that Leenock is playing the Abbasids. Abbasids, with the battering rams, they can come in and push VortiX any moment. There is a forward tower that's going to be a nice staging ground, and the fact that you don't have to research your siege engineering helps a lot here. Not something that you see every day, Spearmen coming from the pocket player in particular, but this could work out so well because they're going for a Rus player. Does VortiX suspect anything? Absolutely not. They see the tower though. So they might suspect there is something coming this way, but I don't think they're expecting a battering ram push up until now. The scouts will spot the spearmen, so now is the time for what will be a pretty difficult defense for VortiX's team. There is knights only from Lucifron. Mista is very far away. Mista does have a stable as well. Oh, this is a disaster. This is a disaster. And we haven't even mentioned this indeed. This is a Dark Age ram. This is a risky play, but we have seen this being done every once in a while, going for a ram push, and now Murlocking is coming in with the English Stone Wall Rush. We have seen that quite a lot recently, going for the Stone Walls, deleting a section, then placing your archers on top, and you see VortiX has to react with his own archers because he's realizing that if he isn't reacting with his archers, the Stone Walls will come up in his face, and the rams will be able to start knocking on his walls. This is a very risky gameplay, I would say, from the Korean team over here, because Leenock staying in Dark Age, going for a ram, it's a huge investment to go for that battering ram, so it will delay your feudal age a lot. But if you can make these walls, the longbowmen will be enough to support you, and you see the spearmen are doing a pretty decent job dealing with those early knights. Knights are now coming in from Kiwian, and the biggest thing right now is that Mista isn't really a factor in this fight. And the other thing is that you have two cavalry players and one archer player, so these spearmen and these knights will perform at a quite acceptable level. Walls are not deleted though by Murlocking. He's trying to get on top of the walls, but the villagers will be surrounded by VortiX's scouts. VortiX will be able to kill both forward wheels, but the walls are now up. The problem for Murlocking is that it's no longer worth it to delete any section and let those archers walk up, because now, if he deletes any section of that wall, VortiX will be able to use that wall as a defensive structure instead of being able to attack. This fail is going to be pretty massive here, I do believe, for Leenock's team. They managed to slow down the fast castle of VortiX, and we have to give them credit for that. But ultimately, VortiX is a pretty big mass of archers, so he can do something with that, combined with the forces of his teammates. And it's not like he's very far away from Castle Age. And now, if you look at Leenock, he's just now building his House of Wisdom, going for multiple defensive towers. Leenock, for reference, is floating 1,000 wood, has some gold in the bank as well, but basically no food. Obviously, he was just chopping wood like crazy, because the idea was that he wants to go for not one, but like 4 rams, and just go for one big ram push. I kind of like the idea. It's a little crazy, but there is some creativity in this one. And now, if he gets to Feudal Age, he can get multiple town centers going with the amount of wood that he's floating. So, not the end of the world, I would say, for Team Kimchi, but it's not looking that great. We have Voz in front of the VortiX here, but as I said, Murlocking wanted to place his own archers on top, but the moment he deletes a section, his opponent will be able to walk on top, and his opponent is going to be able to hold this position. So for Murlocking, deleting a wall section here is not an option, because that will just help VortiX rather than helping him. Here comes the Abbey opportunity for VortiX. So, while he was under a lot of pressure, his reaction was very nice. Went for double ranges, went for a couple of archers. He realized that this is almost an all-in here from Leenock's team. So they want to stop this one, delay the Castle Age, and then once they manage to stop this one, they can still get a very nice Castle Age timing going for themselves. On the right side, we got a couple of knights moving in from Lucifron, trying to get some raids going in the base of Murlocking. Murlocking takes down 2 of those, so a little bit of an inefficiency there for Lucifron. But now, the big question, I think, is going to be how many relics VortiX will be able to grab, because at this point, he's going to have an uncontested time picking up relics. There's also a lot of mobility, and we haven't talked about that. The Mista playing Horseman LucifroN playing Knights and Horse Archers from VortiX, that's going to give them a ton of mobility so they can roam free on the map and hit wherever their opponents aren't. So, looking at Leenock, he's got Spearman defensive towers, very slow-moving army. On the right side, you have English Longbowmen, once again slow-moving. The only player with a lot of mobility is going to be Kiwian, so you can really leverage that mobility advantage right now for Mista's team by just disengaging wherever you encounter the army of spearmen or the army of longbows and then hitting elsewhere. Feudal Age on the way for Leenock. He's gonna have a nice and confident 11.5 minutes feudal with the Abbasids here. For reference, you can do 12 minutes fast Imperials with the Holy Roman Empire, so 11:30 for a feudal age is really slow. Obviously, this was built into his strategy, so Leenock was fully aware of the fact that this is going to delay his feudal age, but the Dark Age ramp push, you always have that trade-off. It's very aggressive, and if it worked out, it would have been a genius move, but the spearmen were intercepted before the ram was completed, and the reaction from VortiX was very fast and nice. Was able to pick off the spearmen with a couple of archers he made. Tower is gonna be taken down. This house is one villager, 2 scouts, and a spearman. The villager is likely going to fall. It's possible that the scouts will survive. You see, LucifroN is surrounding the tower. He knows exactly that he doesn't want to let those units pop out and escape. Gets a beautiful surround, and all of those forces from Leenock will get cleaned up. Fairly sizable force of knights now for LucifroN on the battlefield. As Leenock, we shall welcome you to Feudal Age. He's got enough resources for not 1, but 2 additional town centers, so don't count Leenock out just yet, because one thing that he's not suffering from is aggression in his base. And with the Abbasids and the cheaper villagers, 3 town center boom here, as crazy as it sounds, might work out. Because it's not like he's getting pushed, and you could capitalize on that 3 town centers very fast. Let's see if he does that. He definitely adds 1 more, but I mean, he could afford basically 2 more town centers, so he could go all the way up to 4. Couple of raids coming in here from Kiwian trying to pin VortiX inside his base. VortiX now coming in with the Horse Archers. VortiX also has, I think, 1 Warrior Monk out already. There has to be a Warrior Monk indeed. Here it goes, and it's going for this relic. VortiX just now starting to collect relics. 1 already in for him. On the right side, we do have a Gur moving all the way up here for the Mista for a second gold mine. He's up to Castle Agent. He does have a step red out working for him, so I would expect Lancers to show up on the battlefield pretty soon. Close to that Ovu, you can use the double training ability if you have some stone. As for Kiwian, he is in for the 3rd town center. Now the next question is if he's going for a 4th one, because that would be absolutely crazy. Boss coming up on the right side for Murlocking. They know exactly that they need to play a long game here, as LucifroN is just still swooping up hunts at this point. Minimal fighting going on. If you look at the KDs, just so tiny fights going on throughout the game. LucifroN had 13 kills, but that's pretty much the forward that was cleaned up. First time that the base of Leenock is gonna get hit, but this is where it gets interesting. You don't have a ton of anti-spearman units here for VortiX's team. They have knights, they have lancers and horsemen from the Mista. Of course you have horse archers, but I feel like spearmen and longbows can stall a push like this out. And if you can stall it out, you can capitalize on those town centers. It is 3 town centers right now for Leenock, and he's able to keep his villagers alive nice and easy. With the berries, his food income is also going to be nice, although at this point, he will have to start transitioning to farms because he's depleting those berries really fast. Also made a lot of weapon emplacements on those towers, so he's got a ton of firepower inside his base at this point. On the left side, we do have some horsemen moving in. This is the first major aggression coming in by VortiX. His opponent, Kiwian, is going to have 2 defensive towers on those villagers. For the time being, these villas are safe, but obviously those Castle Age Horse Archers will just decimate the numbers of Kiwian's Feudal Age Knights. Kiwian going for multiple defensive towers here. The problem that they're facing is that there is just an unparalleled mobility for the Mista, VortiX, and LucifroN, and I kind of feel like what they need to do is just triple team Kiwian at this point, because both Murlocking with the English and the Network of Castles bonus, the longbows, will have a nice defense here against the raid. Both Leenock with all those town centers, towers, spearmen. So by far the most exposed player is going to be Kiwian, and you could just triple team him with Lancers, Knights, and Horse Archers, and there is very little that Kiwian can do to stop that. And I think that's exactly what we're going to see. Knights from LucifroN, some Lancers from the Mista are moving to the far left side of the map, intending to intercept Kiwian's forces. Kiwian is on stone, so it looks like he wants to go for a second town center, which might be a little too greedy, given the fact that his teammates are doing something very similar. So it's not like Team Kimchi has a ton of army on the battlefield. A tower for Mista behind the lumberjacks of Murlocking. Such a clever touch. Sneaky villager getting a tower up there. And another tower. This is just such a nice little move from the Mista here, because with that, he's denying a lot of wood income from Murlocking, and that is going to delay Longbowman production. And at this point, it's not like Kiwian team can afford to be delayed at all, because you see Kiwian is now under a lot of pressure. Even the scouts are joining the party. They'll be a good unit to soak up arrow fire or to burn down buildings, as the horse archers will just finish off all the villagers garrisoned inside those archers. Here come the horse archers right now, as the knights and the horsemen are still taking down buildings. Kiwian's still in feudal age, so defensive keep is not really an option right now, and he's trying to make a run for the town center, be it all those town hallers or they full with villagers. There's just nowhere to go for the vills. So many dead bodies littering the battlegrounds, and if you look at the Kiwian's population, that is just collapsing. 27 villagers only for him, and those towers are also being taken down. This is the price you pay over here. The fact that Leenock is set back so much means that he needs a lot of time to recover. Murlocking's got a slow army, and if you look at the mobility of Mista's forces and combine that with LucifroN and VortiX, they have high mobility on their entire army. Lancers, knights, and horse archers. This will be also fine against the spearmen because you got the horse archers working for you. If this was all melee cavalry, the spearmen would be able to hold this off. But with some horse archers over here, the spearmen will be repelled. And basically we have Kiwian out of the game at this point. Horse archers now just tearing apart all those spearmen. And really, at this point, there is just no room to recover for Kiwian because they won't be able to clean this army up inside his base. His army numbers are non-existent. He's at 21 population, 17 of them garrisoned inside the town center. And the spearmen are doing their best, but I mean, the horse archers will just tear them apart. And at this point, Mista's team might even switch focus because they should know that Kiwian is pretty much out of the game for the next 20-30 minutes. And on the right side, you see there is some aggression coming in from Mista as well. We haven't even talked about this. Oh my goodness. That is just a bunch of dead bodies surrounding Murlocking's white tower here. Mista is playing out of his mind with the towers behind the wood lines, the lancers being everywhere. And not only is Kiwian getting absolutely wrecked, it is also Murlocking getting all his villagers slaughtered. The mangonel will be cleaned up most likely, but at this point, not only Kiwian is dead, he's at 22 population. Murlocking is at 12. Mista is playing out of his mind, man. Look at this. And there was just no help for Mista over here. There was no horse archers, there was no knights from LucifroN. It is all Mista that is cleaning up our Teal player, and then on the left side, the combined forces managed to clean up Kiwian. Juggernaut gameplay, I would say, from VortiX, LucifroN+TheMista. Great show. They picked some of their best civilizations. Rus, French, and Mongols might be the best free civilizations for open map team games, so I feel like they did have a bit of a civilization advantage. Team Kimchi, Kiwian, Murlocking, and Leenock went for a risky, crazy strategy. They had the civilization disadvantage, so don't count them out just yet, because I really feel like this game was like, okay, we're going to pick these civilizations, try Arabia with it, but ultimately, they wanted to save some civilizations for game number 2. We have to see Rus, we have to see the Mongols being used in game number 2, otherwise, I feel like those civilizations are just wasted. You either pick them in game number 1 or you have to pick them in game number 2, because in game number 3 you will be able to reuse the game number 1 civilizations. So you have to pick them in game number 2 now that you haven't done that in game number 1. Because I feel like the civilization advantage was massive on the side of Mista's team. This being said, they played really well, exploited the weaknesses of Leenock's team, and they realized that Leenock is booming behind this one. They realized that Murlocking is a nice defense back at home. Answer was to triple team Kiwian and just slaughter him before his teammates could help out. The Mista, I'm not saying he's doing a carrying job here, but 92 kills to 22 deaths, that is brutal. Compare that to LucifroN, and both of them were pretty much playing knights. So 92 kills, 22 deaths versus 34, 42. that is just an outstanding performance from Mista. He was playing crystal clean today, and that is a big win here for Los Polos Hermanos, VortiX, LucifroN, and Mista. We're going to the home map of Kiwian+Leenock and Murlocking. Let's see what exactly their home map is going to be. We do have the draft, and I do believe we can already conclude the map. It is going to be Hillandale, Holy Roman Empire, Chinese, and Abbasids for VortiX and Los Polos Hermanos. Kiwian's team is going to pick Holy Roman Empire, Rus, and Chinese. This basically means that Mongols was unused in game number 1, and it's going to be unused in game number 2 as well. I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do. This being said, HRE Rus Chinese is a deadly combination here. I don't think that you can ignore Chinese on a map like Hillandale. Holy Roman Empire seems to be quite powerful out there, and of course, now that you haven't used Rus in game number 1, you gotta go for Rus as well. So basically, Mongols is the odd civilization out. We will take a couple of minutes of break while the players are launching up the game, so grab yourself some refreshments, because we'll be back with game number 2 in a matter of minutes. Welcome back, everybody, to Los Polos Hermanos, VortiX+LucifroN+TheMista versus Kiwian+Murlocking and Leenock Team Kimchi in the round of 16th of Pro League Qualifiers. $20,000 on the line in this free tournament, and we have game number 2 coming in. In this best of 3, this is a match point for VortiX+LucifroN+TheMista. And you see on the left side of the screen, you have Mista with the Abbasid Dynasty, Lucifron playing as the Chinese, and VortiX will be playing as the Holy Roman Empire. Whereas now, for Leenock's team, they do have some juggernaut Hillandale civilizations, Chinese, Holy Roman Empire, and the Rus. Rus, of course, being a very gold-efficient civilization late game, Holy Roman Empire. I think a no-brainer pick for this map, slowly escalating game, where a fast Imperial can really work out, and then you just don't need that much mobility, so you can play with your knights if you want to, but you can also play with your infantry, so there's a lot of flexibility for the HRE there as well. Almost guaranteed to grab 3 relics for the Ragnis Cathedral, so Holy Roman Empire is probably a no-brainer over here. Chinese, if you have it available, that's a great choice as well, simply because the Fire Lancers are just so powerful, and you also have a great economy behind this one. But Rus versus Abbasid Dynasty, that's the biggest question mark for me, because ultimately, we could see a lot of camel archers from the Abbasids. We haven't talked about that. Rus, of course, want to play with horse archers, and in the long run, in the very late game, the camel archers will outplay them quite heavily. The biggest question, I would say, is can you get to good camel archer numbers? Because it is much more difficult to mass camel archers than it is to mass horse archers. Only 14 seconds left from the spectator countdown. Los Polos Hermanos coming in with teal, green, and purple with their colors. Team Kimchi against them in yellow, blue, and red. We're jumping into game number 2. Game. Sometimes the game does that. You gotta wait a tiny bit until you can jump into the next game, because guess what? Sometimes the game freaks out a tiny bit. No more gameplay tips appearing, and that's a little scary. This might be an Alt F4 and a restart. Game, please behave. Well, it is what it is. Oh, there is still gameplay tips showing up, which means that the game hasn't crashed. It's just freaking out for a time being. Worst case scenario, we're gonna have an Alt F4. Come on. Don't make me Alt F4, you game. Alright. Alright. Oh! You see, I just had to threaten the game to Alt F4 him, and it started working, so that usually seems to be a good way to go. Down south, we're going to have Leenock's team with Leenock as the flank playing in Chinese. The pocket is going to be Murlocking playing as the red with the Holy Roman Empire, and the other flank is going to be the Rus for Kiwian in yellow. The other side, we will have Chinese flank as well for Lucifron in green. The other flank will be the Holy Roman Empire for VortiX in teal, and in the pocket you will have the Mista playing as the Abbasids in purple. So when it comes to these civilizations, obviously you will be looking at very economy-heavy approaches. With the Abbasid Dynasty, it's not impossible to pull off a free town center boom without any major issues. Chinese likely going to have a 2TC Song Dynasty boom into a fast Imperial and just Fire Lancers after that. And for VortiX, and of course the other Holy Roman Empire player, which is Kiwian, is going to be fast Imperial with 1 town center into the Palace of Swabia and boom from there. And from that point on, it comes down to a decision. Are you going for melee knights or are you going for infantry? I think it depends on what else your teammates are going for. Given the fact that you have Fire Lancers and likely Camel Archers, I think knights make a little bit more sense for Mista, because that would give them quite a lot of mobility. But you could go for the infantry of the HRE as well without any major issues. Inspiring the villagers of VortiX over here. Nice little move from him to inspire the villagers while the cooldown is still on there on the villagers of the gold mine. So Whenever you get a villager inspired, it is going to remain inspired for 20 seconds. So what you want to do is send your prelate out here, inspire all the villagers, and then go back, inspire these. And as there is the cooldown on them, you send your prelate back. You have to micro this guy back and forth until you get your Archon Chapel going. The Archon Chapel is likely going to be placed around here, so it is going to affect the lumberjacks, the gold miners, and then the food gatherers right next to the town center. Meanwhile, we have a spearman coming in here for Mista. Are we going to see the exact same strategy that we have seen in the previous game? Oh boy. Remember that on this map, I feel like you have a much bigger chance of recovery than on the previous one. On Arabia, it's just so hard to reboom, because your teammates will just die. But what happens if you do the exact same strategy, go for a Dark Age ramp push with the Abbasids? Even if it fails, worst case scenario, you evolve yourself, and you just boom back on 3 town centers. You could see that Kiwian was able to reboom in the previous game. The biggest problem for them was that his teammate died while he was booming back. But on this map, which is a lot more defendable and a lot more vulnerable, it is way less punishing to lose that ramp forward. Now, there's only a handful of spearmen over here, but since your opponent is basically not gonna make any kind of army, even just a handful of spearmen with a couple of rams could be devastating. Of course, you gotta be careful about this one because the villagers can just torch down the rams, so you will need some sort of escort unit to that. A couple more spearmen coming across the map. Still curious to see what Mista has on his mind because his spearman numbers aren't spectacular. Mista coming in with the first spearman right now. His target is likely going to be Leenock, and honestly, he's one of the better targets, but Leenock has spotted the spearman coming forward. He has to know because he's making a barracks. Now, here's the deal. Does Mista have to be worried about this one? I don't think so. In fact, forcing the Chinese player to make a barracks is probably a good idea, because this is going to slow down their boom a tiny bit. So this wasn't part of the plan for Leenock, and you see he's now sending out the spearman. Mista is gonna be like, okay, whatever, you can make your spearman, I'm just gonna make mine and retreat. And ultimately, if you take a look at Mista, he will probably just go up to Feudal Age, so he's going to bail out on this attempt as fast as possible with the spearman out already for Leenock. He forced the Chinese player of the opponent to make some spearmen though and a barracks, so there is definitely some value over there for him. Murlocking already in Feudal Age, as well as VortiX and Lucifron. Looking at our Rus player, Kiwian, he has gotten up to 320 bounty. Not terrible, but it could be better. There is still some hunt to take down as the spearmen are marching back and forth. Numbers are better now for Leenock, so there is no chance for the Mista to push this one. He probably wants to finish off that wolf so it doesn't fall into the hands of Kiwian. Looking at Kiwian, he's likely going to play a fast castle style build. He's very heavy on the wood department. Makes me wonder if we're going to see a tower over here, or even a second town center as he gets up to Castle Age. We have seen that sometimes from the Rus. In fact, you could even buy yourself the stone you need with the Golden Gate. So it's not impossible to see a double town center play from the Rus here. You don't need to rush Castle Age necessarily. The thing that you would really get with the fast castle for the Rus is that you could bring in the relics and give it to the HRE player. So a fast castle with the Rus here would guarantee free relics for the Holy Roman player, because there is no way that your opponents will be able to deny relics from warrior monks. Warrior monks will just run away from any kind of Feudal Age unit here, really. So you can gather the relics, send them to your teammate, and you might even be able to grab some for yourself. Spearman or Leenock right now pursuing Mista. Mista is being very annoying here with those spears. He's still in Dark Age, by the way, as his resource bank is kind of low, but he's mining stones, so he is going to play multiple town centers, and he's already on the way to Feudal Age. Spearman still marching forward. You probably want to stab down that deer so that Kiwian isn't able to, and Kiwian knows that. Kiwian is going to snipe the deer before the spearman could. Right now, Leenock is just pursuing these. One of the things that you're accomplishing with those spearmen out here, though, is that you're delaying the woes of the opponent quite a bit, and that's something that we haven't talked about yet. These spearmen aren't able to do much when it comes to threatening the eco, but they're able to intercept villagers that are sent to wall. So if you look at Murlocking, he's just now starting to wall over here. Makes me wonder if we're going to see some sort of aggression from other members of VortiX's team, as long as these walls are open. Spearman now marching forward. Mista is going to sound a full retreat. He's going to have a second town center coming in pretty soon. He's also going for the berries. Indeed, that's a beautiful second TC. It's also going to be on the berries, which helps quite a bit for the Mista. Meanwhile, on the other side, Leenock already on 2 town centers. He has the Imperial Palace going, and I'm fairly certain that we are soon going to see the Barbican of the Sun being placed just so that he can advance into the Song Dynasty. Castle Age already in for VortiX, though. That's a very, very clean timing. He can already sound out prelates to pick up relics. The first one is just now coming in. Spearman will probably guard this relic over here in case Murlocking is trying to pick that up. And it looks like Lucifron is going to do some professional scouts gameplay over here with the Chinese. He's playing 1TC for the time being, and that's a difference compared to the other Chinese player, Leenock. Lucifron is going to Fairy Endear. Now, he's got a stable going, so technically speaking, as long as these holes are open here, a fast Castle Knights play could work nicely for Lucifron, or even just a couple of horsemen. Keep these holes open and then just keep applying pressure on the opponents. Kiwian, looking at his base, he's getting close to Castle Age. He's going to drop the Abbey as we speak. Castle Age almost in for Murlocking. Murlocking was kind of slow going into Castle Age here compared to the timing of VortiX. VortiX is already up and VortiX already started gathering relics, so VortiX has to be happy with his situation. He's going to be with 3 relics in all certainty. Abbey opportunity being rushed up by Kiwian, and as things stand, walls are slowly coming up for them. Not a lot of walls at this point for Lucifron's team. In fact, they are playing wide open. We got some scouts out here for Lucifron, so he knows exactly if there's any kind of aggression coming his way. Spearman might actually get some nice hits on Kiwian's scouts over here, as this way, Kiwian is able to distract the Spearman, so this is intentional. Beautiful micro by Kiwian, by the way. He's pulling away the weak scouts. The entire idea here was that the prelate has to survive. That's just beautiful teamwork. Kiwian is sending in his scouts, absorbing the damage, so this prelate can survive. One thing that they didn't account for is that the prelate is going to be exposed to the Spearman now. The prelate didn't pick up the relic. I feel like the better choice here would have been to pick up the relic and then try a conversion. Because if you try a conversion, the Spearmen have to disengage, and that buys your teammate time to catch up with your prelate. Still, it looks like the spears of Leenock will be able to scare away the spears of Mista, so Murlocking grabs that relic. Looks like this prelate is also under attack, so a lot of pressure done by those spearmen, by the Mista. They're delaying the relic collection of Murlocking quite a bit, and now this prelate that already has been damaged quite heavily might get killed by the scout or the spearman. Spearmen are now coming in here for the Mista. Just a couple more stabs and the prelate is going down. You have to pop that conversion. Well, it could have been done when it was like 20 HP. Now that it was 8, it was a little too late. But when it was 20 HP, if you pop the conversion, you can scare away those spearmen and then continue your journey back home. Hardened Spearman upgrade in for Leenock. These are investments that he doesn't necessarily want to make. He needs to help his teammate, but with the Chinese, he just wants to boom. So Hardened Spearman is an upgrade that normally he would skip. Still, we have some openings on the right side as horse archers are hitting the field now for Kiwian. Walls are slowly going up for Los Polos Hermanos on the right side. In the middle, we already have walls up for the Mista. 2 relics in the Ragnis Cathedral right now for VortiX, but wouldn't be surprised to see him bringing in some more. Indeed, there is relic number 3, and with that prod, he could even grab relic number 4. Meanwhile, on the other side, the first couple of warrior monks are coming in. As things stand, Murlocking is on 0 relics, and he's going up with the Palace of Schwabia already. Other side, Palace of Schwabia already in for VortiX, so he's already booming out. I feel like you are one step ahead if you are in VortiX's team, because as things stand, they already have Imperial Age, they already have the 3 relics in the Ragnitz Cathedral once this prelate comes back. There's a 4th relic coming in as well, so relic numbers will be way better for VortiX's team. At this point, Murlocking has to be happy if he's even able to grab 3 relics. There is still 1 over here, and the Warrior Monk could take that, but Kiwian's Castle Age here was kind of slow, and because of that, he couldn't use the Warrior Monks to collect the relics for his teammate. On the left side, you do have 1 scout from VortiX harassing the villager. Leenock will sacrifice this villager if needed, but he needs to finish those walls. We do have horse archers coming in from Kiwian. They are mostly here for map control, but most of the relics have already been picked up, so they're just late to the party. If these horse archers come out 2 minutes earlier, it would have been a little easier to pick off some prelates, deny some relics. At this point, you see the warrior monk is bringing back the first relic, but that is only the first relic in that Ragnis Cathedral. That is a bad sign for Murlocking. On this map, the minimum is that you stack up 3 relics in that Ragnis Cathedral. Anything below that is very underwhelming, and if you look at VortiX, he's got 3 and he's got a monastery because there's a 4th one coming in, and maybe even a 5th one. Yep, that is free 5 relics for VortiX, 3 of them being in the Ragnitz Cathedral. There is still one more relic to pick up, and I think Kiwian is going to be able to grab that with his Warrior Monk. But as things stand, it is 1 relic in the Ragnitz Cathedral, 1 right next to it. So Murlocking has to be happy if he gets to 3 at this point. 485 bounty, also not nice for Kiwian, because he wants to get to that 500 to unlock the extra getter speed on his villagers. Would have been nice to grab that. He's out of sheep, I do assume, and indeed that's the case. It is down 3 sheep, and that's not ideal. Spearman still being active over here by the Mista, slowly getting taken down by the Horse Archers. Horse Archers also eating some damage, though, from the Spears. Spearman even poking down 1, maybe even a second one as well. Not looking spectacular at this point for the team of Kiwian, because they're down in relic numbers. You already have Imperial Age in for VortiX. Murlocking is also an imp, but I'll be very surprised to see Murlocking having a villager lead over VortiX. In fact, let's check that out. VortiX is at 66, Murlocking is at 56. So that Imperial Age advantage translated into 10 villagers advantage for Murlocking. That's brutal. That is just brutal. Bows are up here in the middle. LucifroN still faring in deer for himself. He's in Yuan Dynasty. He's got the Astronomical Clock Tower and the Imperial Palace. Still supervising the mill that he's gathering food at. And, well, the Chinese tax is not something that you necessarily have to actively collect, because it's a nice little extra bonus, but it's not life and death matter. 800 tax gold on that mill is not something that you can ignore. So I would love to see LucifroN having 1 tax collector just starting to continuously pick that up, because that's just a ton of gold to work with, and we're already seeing Fire Lancers come in from LucifroN. Meanwhile, on the other side, Yuan Dynasty is in, so Fire Lancers can be an option. Still Castle Age for both Leenock and LucifroN. Some Horse Archers hitting the field as well. Sacred Site being captured right now by Murlocking using the Warrior Monk. As things stand, there is 2 relics in that Ragnitz Cathedral, though, and that's the ugly thing here. They need a 3rd relic somehow, and if I'm not mistaken, it's a little crowded of a minimap, but if I'm not mistaken, I don't see any more unclaimed relics. Luckily for Kiwian's team, they find one on the right side, and that is going to be just enough to make Murlocking's Ragnitz Cathedral work at full capacity. A couple of Camel Archers out here for the Mista. Makes me wonder if he went with the Camel support upgrade, and the answer is no. He can still go into Imperial with the military wing and grab Camel support, because he's got some Archers and he's got some Camels going over here. Secret Site currently under the control of Murlocking, but that might be short-lived, because at this point we could see the Mista moving out. Fire Lancers already out in decent numbers for LucifroN, and for Leenock, he has the stables out. He's starting to pop out some Fire Lancers. No Spirit Way for either of these players just yet. The question is, will we have that for LucifroN first? LucifroN still in Castle Age. VortiX with 1700 gold per minute. Of course, he has 6 relics. Just think about this for a brief moment. 3 relics in the Ragnitz Cathedral, that's 900 per minute, and 300 more. 1200 gold per minute for this one is passive for VortiX. That's gigantic. And he did that against Rus. And the Rus is just so good at collecting relics. I feel like the Castle Age timing of Kiwian was just a little too slow. Seemed like he wanted to go for a second Town Center early, but at this point, I think priority was to make sure that you grab as many relics as you can. And with the Rus and the HRE on the roster, you should always have more relics than just a single HRE player. Chemistry now on the way for VortiX. Mista's got a fairly sizable force of archers moving out as well, neutralizing the Sacred Site as he is crawling forward. He has to be careful because Fire Lancers are being assembled by Leenock. Stone Walls coming in though from both Murlocking and Leenock, so double layer Stone Walls coming out on both sides. Gotta love this share of duties. One player walling in front of the hill with the Stone Walls, the other one walling on top of the hill. The weak spot, of course, is the right side, which is just now being walled off, and a bit of a lack of team coordination right now. Palisades coming in by Kiwian, and Stone Walls coming in by Leenock. But ultimately, this could end up having this wall section completely unwalled. What is this? It was probably Kiwian realizing that this is still open, and he wanted to rush up some walls, and Leenock had the same idea, but lack of communication hurts so badly because this is just a terrible wall. And honestly, Palisade Walls at this stage of the game is also a mistake, because against Fire Lancers, that holds for a solid 1 second. So at this point, you want to have Stone Walls, and speaking of holding against something, you may have noticed that VortiX is sending a couple of units across the map. There is a steady steel line from the opponent's base to the base of VortiX here, in which he's just sending out a bunch of infantry with maces. He's missing 200 weapons, and on the battlefield we already see Mangonels and Springolds being added by the Mista with the Abbasids. Bombards already blasting their way through the walls. How many Fire Lancers do we have? That's the main question. And the answer is minimal numbers, because Lucifron is already in with the Fire Lancers, and he will trade off his forces against the one of Leenock. Where did even those Fire Lancers get in? Probably through the holes on the right side when we weren't looking. But that's going to be some nice raids going, and because of that, Leenock has a minimal amount of Fire Lancers to fight this one. They blast their way through the gates, and before this keep would be finished, the Bombards will take care of it. This is looking really grim for Team Kimchi. And as I said before this series, this set could be 2-0 for either team. This set could be very close. There was no way for us to tell who is going to take this, and honestly, there's a big group of knights coming in with elite upgrades for Murlocking. Not a ton of crossbows to deal with them. Man-at-arms with the maces will perform at an acceptable level, but you also got horse archers coming in. This might be a reasonable position to hold for Kiwian and Murlocking. Still, elite knights with just a limited amount of numbers. We also have some prelates moving in. And just look at the flood of units by VortiX. Behind this one, the Fire Lancer numbers aren't particularly spectacular for Leenock, because here comes the charge from the Fire Lancers from Lucifron. He definitely has better numbers. Slowly but surely the Fire Lancer numbers increase for Leenock, but he's losing his stables, so that's going to set him back quite a bit. A nest of bees being added onto the battlefield, but now it is the base of Leenock being absolutely stomped. VortiX was able to sit on 6 relics with the Holy Roman Empire. I think that's one of the most relics I've ever seen for Holy Roman Empire under their control. And you can just see how great their economy is. Fire Lancers will come in and intercept those Mangonels. But this is VortiX's army written all over it. There is some support from Mista with the siege, but VortiX, I feel like he could even 1v3 this one at this point. He's got such a big army of men-at-arms, still missing the 200 weapons. Makes me wonder if he knows that the bug was fixed, so he can grab both upgrades now. But he's got the Bombards, he's got the men-at-arms. VortiX has pretty much the majority of his forces disintegrating the base of Leenock here. And Mista at this point is like, I'm helping. He's got a couple of archers here. It's obviously something that's helpful, but the main force is VortiX here. And of course, now with Lucifron being completely untouched, the Fire Lancers are also crawling in. Those landmarks will be destroyed in a matter of seconds. The Imperial Palace is already lit ablaze. The clock tower is about to get destroyed. Leenock will be eliminated in less than a minute at this point. Imperial Palace almost taken down. Academy gone. Town Center gone. There has to be a Barbican of the Sun somewhere that might still be alive, and that might be the saving grace for Leenock, assuming that he ever went Song Dynasty. If he didn't go for Song Dynasty and went straight to Yuan, he's gonna be defeated, and he went straight to Yuan because there is no Barbican of the Sun to be destroyed. Leenock is defeated, and with that, it is game over. I don't think they can stop this one 2 versus 3, especially with VortiX having 6 relics with the Holy Roman Empire. He's got 3,000 gold per minute. For reference, that's more than his opponents combined. And with that, Team Kimchi resigns. 2-0 for VortiX, LucifroN, and the Mista. They are looking extremely strong, and they have gotten a tough opponent for themselves in the round of 16th. That is just a brutal opponent to fight against Leenock, Kiwian, and Murlocking. But boy oh boy, Mista's team made it look easy. There were some weird things in this set, I believe, for Team Kimchi. The civilization selections in game number 1 was a little puzzling. Game number 2, what I was a little surprised about is how late Kiwian's castle age was for a Roos-fast castle. Things didn't really work out for him. He wasn't able to get to tier 3 bounty, and by having a fairly late castle age timing, that basically meant that VortiX was able to grab 9, or not 9, but 6 relics, which actually translates into 12 relics for any non-Holy Roman Empire player, because that's 1200 gold per minute, but still 6 relics for VortiX, only 3 for Murlocking. That is a difference of 300 gold per minute gold income between the two HRE players. And if you look at the gold gathered at the end, 24,000 for VortiX. Of course, some of that is gold miners, but just a gigantic eco for VortiX. 18,000, exactly 18,000 food, not one less, not one more. 24,522 gold. For reference, the second most gold acquired was Murlocking, 13,000. Brutal, absolutely brutal. It is indeed a very, very clean build from VortiX. It is possible that some resources were sent by the teammates of VortiX to help that Castle Age timing, but VortiX did a very, very clean build overall, and of course, his Imperial Age was fueled by the early relics, so it's not even the Imperial Age timing of VortiX, which was also very good, but the Castle Age timing. He probably had a very efficient economy at the beginning. It's possible that his teammates were also donating sheep or something like that to help out, and with that, we are going to have Los Polos Hermanos, VortiX, LucifroN+TheMista moving into the top 8. Very, very clean gameplay from them. Very well deserved. Team Kimchi was, I think, a little underwhelming today. I think on their better days, they could perform a tiny bit better. They played well, but obviously are up against one of the strongest teams of the tournament. They finished with a top 16 position in AoE4 Pro League.